Yo, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all the other episodes, stop by raprankings.com or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform.
Welcome back. Our next guest is a bit of a historian of the last 15 to 20 years of LA rap. He's also an MC in his own right, and he's a member of the duo Takayo with producer Swarvy. He's had the privilege of working with both Blu and Exile on his album Incandescent, as well as featuring on several Blu projects and Blu featuring on his projects. Rap Rankings faithful, please give a warm welcome to our guest, Versus.
Peace, y'all. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Welcome.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Hey,
No
welcome.
problem.
Anytime.
Oh, and just one small thing. It's incandescent, but it did.
Incandescent.
But it was inspired by that word too.
You know what this means, right, Moulz?
What's that?
You got to drop your Rap Rankings 2K rating down a point.
Damn.
All right.
Who's messing up now?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm a 93.
Let me duck.
I'm now a 93. Last week I was a 94.
Yeah. It's
We'll
been a
leave it
bit of
in.
a controversy.
We'll leave it in.
Versus. It's,
There's
since
no
last
controversy.
week.
I haven't
No,
heard anybody. I haven't heard anybody dispute the ratings.
I've rated myself at 80 due to various errors and gaffes and faux pas throughout the season. But now Moulz is over here messing up, and he fancies himself the captain of the show. So I look forward to climbing in the power rankings and one day surpassing him. But
I mean, listen, if I can take a cue from our guests, okay, Mel, it's gaffes.
Oh, no! Oh. What did I say, gaffes?
Damn.
Yeah, so your rating also went down.
Christ. No, I'm a 79. Enough of this. Okay, all right. I don't want. If we keep going, we're going to lose more points. We're happy to have you here, Versus.
I'm happy to be
this wacky
here.
world of Rap Rankings.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well,
So we're
Mel,
here. Yeah.
Before we get carried away here, Versus. If you're not familiar with our show, this is Rap Rankings, the show where we listen to, rate, rank, and discuss every album in hip-hop history. Yes, every album. And we do that with our rating system.
Oh, right. So, yeah, Versus, if you don't mind, I'll get you acquainted with this rating system real quick.
Okay,
Usually
bet.
I can press a button that's automated, me explaining it, but whenever we have guests, I can't press the automated button because there are things in there that need to be altered for the sake of. So yeah, I'll explain this rating system real quick. So yeah, the rating system is simple. Each song is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. These numbers do not reflect the quality of a song, as that is indeterminable. Instead, each number reflects a level of enjoyment. In short, here's what each number means. 10 means this is a perfect song to me, one of my favorite songs of all time. 9 means I love it. 8 means I like it a lot. 7 means I like it. 6 means it's alright. I don't dislike it, but I can't say that I like it. 5 means I feel practically nothing about this. 4 means it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but I dislike it. 3 means I dislike it. 2 means I hate it. And 1 means I absolutely can't stand it. One of the worst things I've ever heard. Side note, you can add a plus or a minus to those numbers. Those pluses and minuses have no mathematical or statistical value. They're merely indicators that mean one of two things. It's like saying a strong or light version of that number. So like a 6 plus, strong 6, 9 minus, light 9. And it also is an indicator that the rating could go up or down in the future because the ratings on this show aren't static, much like the 2K ratings I was just describing. So like sometimes we got a whole segment about changing ratings called I Was Fucking Tripping. So if we change our minds in the future, it's like that plus is like, hey, I told you it might go up one day. Or so yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right,
so, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I'm still tripping. I would mess up the pronunciation of the word gaff. That's like
It's a gaff itself, right?
That's a double gaff.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. At least I think it is. But anyway, yeah. So we're here with this. We're to do this track 3. This Soul Amazin (parentheses still blazing). So SO (parentheses UL). Like so amazing, you know. Of course, produced by Exile, like the majority of this album.
The whole album, right?
Did I say majority? Yeah, whole album, basically. You know, some albums we've had during this tag team tournament season, you know, we might have some co-production or credits, or you know, maybe the rapper produced something. So like, yeah, pardon me. But yeah, when we have a guest, we usually like to give them the floor. If you want to give your rating first, you can go first, or we can go first, however you want to do it.
And we're rating off the song "Soul Amazing," right?
Yep.
Got you. Yeah, I'd say this one's a 10. Just because,
okay, here we go.
Just because it's stuck, you know, for so long, and like even having to listen to it, or not having to, but like going back to listen to it, to visit, to come speak to you guys about it. I was like, yeah, when I heard this, like it like, I think really I heard the song first, and then I remember seeing the video, and then just being like, so the song in the video honestly reminded me of like Mr. Rogers or something. And just being home watching public access, and instead of like learning about, you know, how to count, and it's like, yo, you know, have to count on your faith like when you get older. That's what I got from this record, you know. So yeah, honestly, it's probably a really whole long list of things I could ramble about, but off the top of my head right now, it's just the fact that like I from this song, it made me realize that, you know, going forward, like you really are gonna need to have faith fortified, because how life can be, and that's really the main thing I got out of it. And yeah, Blu was one of the people, and like next to like a Common, I would say, that inspired me to just keep being me, and you know, talk about whatever the actual experience is and take it from there. And yeah, that's what that song did for me. It just felt like I could tell he grew up out here. I could tell he most likely, you know, had certain challenges with this and that, whatever that era that he grew up in was, and you know, he was able to keep doing what he's doing, and, you know, so yeah, I'd say on top of my head, that's the main reason why I picked that record and give it a 10. It's just, it stuck, and it really meant and means something to me as far as like just life, not even the art part of it. But yeah.
Okay. Well, it's hard to argue with that. I remind people these are ratings that reflect our enjoyment of these records. So,
got you.
You know, I feel you. I mean, that sounds like a 10 to me, something that would be that impactful and moving for you.
I was like, what, like probably like 16, 17.
Okay. Yeah, like, you're really like,
it was right
before.
Like
a sponge at that age, right? Like, I know I was, at least.
No,
you know?
Definitely.
It's interesting that you brought up Common, because for all the Illmatic comparisons, that, you know, this album gets a lot of comparisons,
right?
To like Pantheon canon classics.
Yeah, as it should.
I think the Illmatic comparisons come from the obvious, like, the world is motif on this album.
Right.
But these records on here remind me a lot more of Common on Resurrection and One Day It'll All Make Sense.
Right.
You know, especially as I was listening this past week, thinking about, you know, he's talking about on this album, he's 22 or he's 23 or something like that. You know, Common being like the same age when he made Resurrection, you know, sort of drawing those parallels about being in that particular place in your life.
Right. Yeah, I agree that it's a little more comparable to Common than a Nas.
Yeah. I mean, the Nas thing, I think, is blatantly on the surface in The World Is records and My World Is, which we discussed, I think, the intro record on here. But for me, this record's a 7+. Okay. It's a 7+. Right. Sting Me Baby. I like it. It was one of the first Blu records that I heard. This and Narrow Path, because originally, before this album leaked even, there were EPs. 2 EPs, if I am remembering correctly. And, you know, this was like some of the first stuff I heard from him. To me, the combination with the different elements on the beat, like, it's a soft beat, but the drums are really hard. I think Exile kind of snapped on here. then you bring the MOP sample in. That adds a certain energy to it.
Yeah, this song's ridiculous for that.
I'm a production first kind of guy. So for me, the beat here it's money. It's up there for me amongst my favorite beats on the album. I like Blue on here, but there's other records on this album where I feel like he snapped more lyrically, where the storytelling from him is better, the emotion cuts through for me more. So for me, this is good Blue and very good Exile, which sort of gives me a 7+.
Got you.
Ultimately, enjoyment-wise. But yeah, solid record on the album overall.
Weird. And one thing I wanted to add on is with the production, because I didn't mention that at all. It's definitely the production. Actually, I did remind me of Mr. Rogers. I said just those like chords going in that loop, like how it was. But I wanted to point out the scratches at the end. That part of it is very like, man. It's like that's the stuff, you know, that keeps it. If the rest of the song didn't get you, it's like, here you go. You know, like if you know what that is. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. So shout out Exile for that crazy cut section at the outro.
Man, he's a wizard, because like there's that string sample in there too. That
Yep.
You know, kind of really like adding to the atmosphere of everything.
Yep.
So Mel, I've given my rating. Versus has provided a 10. He's brought a 10 to the table. I got a modest 7+.
I hate when this happens. I know what the audience is thinking. If they're acquainted with me, they can tell what's about to happen. They're like, you know, Mel,
now you's a ridiculous fuck.
You always inviting guests on, and you gotta play the contrarian all the time. I'm like, look, I don't want to be a contrarian. I don't like being a contrarian, you know? So 7+ for you, Moulz.
Yes.
A 10 for you, Versus. Okay, this is where I'm at with it. I don't hate this thing. I don't know, nowhere even near hatred, you know, or active dislike of this thing. But for me, okay, now keep in mind when I say this.
Now black music is black music, and it's all good.
Okay, keep that in mind. I give it a flat 6. Okay, which means it's alright. It's alright. That's all, you know. But listen, two on one, I'm outnumbered.
Hey, as I said, to each his own.
Hey, we're over here. We're soul amazing. We're still blazing. Okay.
Well, I'm over here soulless and extinguished, I suppose,
with a 79 rating.
All right. Yeah. Look, well, listen. As we do on the show, I will offer my explanation as to why this is a 6. I will talk about the pros and cons of the record for me. One thing I wanted to address up top, Versus, you were talking about like this kind of reminded you of Mr. Rogers. That's one of the pros for me. I said the beat is pleasant. The melody and like the keys and everything. I like that aspect of the beat. What kind of throws me off, and this is I guess just a me thing. I don't know if anyone else will feel the same way, but the drums in comparison to like the soothing stuff that's happening underneath are not clashing. I would say it's the word I always use. Incongruent, perhaps, because I
was pointing out, like, I actually like that about it, because everything else is so calm and like serene sounding that I like that those drums are picking it up, because otherwise it's boring. You know, it's like it adds that knock to it.
Well, see, boring to you would be, you know, relaxing to me. Like the drums to me are like very loud and boomy, which to me would have worked with a more raucous, you know, musical accompaniment, I suppose. Like, I know, like, the strings in there that you're talking about, those were more, like, shrill than soothing to me on here. Like, because maybe it's how it was mixed, but, like, the beat is fine. It's just, like, I'm kind of, like, torn between two different flavors, I suppose. Ultimately, beat aside, when we get to Blue here, I mean, it's in the title of the song itself, you know, soul amazing. There's a lot of talk of soul on here, and my takeaway is this is one of those songs that's apparently to me supposed to like stir my soul a bit, you know, and that didn't quite happen for me, which isn't to say that it was bad, but I think, you know, a lot of this record is banking on it sort of getting inside you and moving you in such a way. And this was like more meat and potatoes than like moving me, you know, like, so yeah, it wasn't bad at all, you know, otherwise I'd be giving it like a 4 or a 3 or something. I just don't feel, I guess, as nourished as I feel like I'm supposed to feel. So, you know, that's part of it. You know, I mean, but that's just the thing, though. We can't rate on quality. I can't tell you, oh, this is bad, this is good. This is how I feel. And I mean, like, whereas it doesn't move me, it can move someone like Versus or Moulz, you know? So
right. To varying degrees, you know? It's a big difference between a 7 and a 10 at that, you know? So I just like to have a platform that everybody can kind of put their 2 cents in, and we can have a respectful dialogue about it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, well, truthfully, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't have to be respectful. I mean, Versus, if you want to get disrespectful, we can get disrespectful.
Well, no, I'm talking about, you know, when we started this show, one thing that we wanted to, you know, be clear about was we're not going to be on this show talking crazy about someone.
Oh, well, no, our responsibility is to not be disrespectful to the artist. When I'm talking to you, though, or you talking to me, or we have a guest, we can be disrespectful amongst each other. That's all it is.
I mean, this guy's sitting with a 79 rating right now. If you want to know how he got that way, you'll have to listen to last week's episode. But, you know, the artists themselves, I'm saying, is that we never wanted to basically have a platform where we're talking greasy about artists or anything that would be construed in that manner for clicks or attention or like anything, clout, anything like that whatsoever. The idea was essentially, you know, we need to be, Mel, if you could hit my Donahue truth drop.
Sure, I can do that. Here you go.
And everybody all these years has been scared to step forward. Now come forward.
Okay, so, you know, there's like consensus classics, and this is one of them, quite frankly. I think that this is a new age classic, this album. I think it's an album that, you know, not many underground albums from like the mid to late 2000s have been canonized.
AKA the blog era.
Right, the early blog era. So we're thinking about, you know, how many of them have really withstood the test of time. And the thing about someone like Blu, and I think I maybe at some point have probably mentioned this already, is that I think he's went on to make music that's just as good, if not better than this album. Like, this album's a gift and a curse in a similar way that Illmatic is for Nas. It's like, you know, you got to keep listening. You got to keep following the career and the trajectory of someone's music and not get stuck on this one thing, you know, even if, you know, it's like, this is the thing that you have the greatest attachment to or the most nostalgia with or something like that. Like, you know, artists like Nas and Blu and stuff, they went on to make great music beyond just this record. And, you know, essentially what I'm trying to get at is like, when you're discussing something, Mel, that's held in such a high regard, it's, you know, like, it can be a touchy subject. We can go to your Illmatic.
I already know.
We could go to your Illmatic review, 5 out of 10. We can go to your Only Built for Cuban Links review, 6 out of 18 or something like that. You know, very controversial. But, you know, at the end of the day, no disrespect was intended towards the artist or even the music necessarily, more so than you laying it out there, being honest about how you feel about something and encouraging that kind of dialogue between people, because we're seeing, you know, quite frankly, you know, I think a lot of people are scared to lay bare their actual feelings about things. And sometimes when they do, they don't do so in a respectful manner.
Right.
So that's my little diatribe on that.
Look, for every person that's like I say, financially or socially co-opted and are afraid to speak their truth, we have someone who speaks their truth but they're disrespectful, like a la DJ Academics. Okay, we don't want to be either of those people or those groups. We want to do what we do here on Rap Ranking. So no disrespect intended, and keep in mind, a 6. I didn't give it a 4 or a 3 or a 2.
But you could if you wanted to,
I don't want to because I don't feel that way about it. It's all right,
it's an open forum. So Versus, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit, like, and we'll get into some of the work that you've done with Blu Exile in just a little bit. But I wanted to just talk to you about Below the Heavens. If we zoom out a little bit here, what did that album mean to you when it came out? Where were you at the time? And, just some recollections that you may have, because I was actually surprised this week to find out the sequencing on the retail version of this album is completely different than what I was used to. 2 records were absent from this version of the album. There were little interludes added in between songs. Like there's one with like Fela Kuti, and there's another with like a Joni Mitchell sample or something. And I'm just like, wow, I've never heard the album like this. Some of the sequencing decisions I found to be a little strange, like ending the album on I Am, for example. But were you someone that when you found this album, it was the retail version, or did you hear the one that had been passed around on the internet for the year prior?
I for sure heard something from the internet.
Right.
When I heard it. And then I remember when I finally got to finally catch up with him, with Blu in person, he gave me a CD of it. So that was I think that was in 2011. So that was the time I actually got to have the CD, basically. Like, the CD that I have now. But I definitely, in the initial stage, it was MySpace, hearing him as Johnson & Johnson around that same time too, and him in Mainframe. But as far as like where I was when I first heard the record, I would say I was in Pasadena, living with my older brother. I was probably just surfing MySpace or something, or a blog, or like maybe even Two Dope Boys, or I don't even know where I got the copy, honestly. I can't really remember right now, but I was for sure in Pasadena, about 16, 17. Already was making music, and as far as what it meant to me, like I said earlier, it just touched home. Like it made me feel like, all right, there's like before Blu, I was listening to Merce. Like Merce caught my attention, and then before him, there's other people too. So it's like, but specifically with Blu, it was a certain like just the approach he took. Like he has songs where he's like talking trash and like being aggressive or whatever, but that's not, for the most part, that's not what he's doing, and that's more like how I am in person, in real life anyway too. So I identify with that. The record it just made me feel like, damn, there's some magic like in life, and you could really transmute some things and get together with the right people and like change your life, other people's lives around you for who knows how long. Like the fact that we're having a conversation about an album 2 guys met through another friend, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a whole, like, all right, put it like thinking about Takayo, like that, it's coming from the word excuse me, Tocayo, like in Spanish, people with the same name. Thinking about Eminem, they had no name, and their name was the same. You know what I mean? Like they flipped their name backwards, and all this to say, like I feel like when like this record and that whole era influences so much, like including the group indirectly, just as far as like carrying the story of like communities helping each other, as far as in the music space, at least, like people just coming together. Like from what I heard, Aloe Black is the one that told Exile to come check out Blu, and like how like Swerve and I met. Like Mind Design played me some of his music, and I was just like, who is this? Like, what's going on? Like, I would love to like meet this person, and I finally got to meet him, and we ended up becoming a group very shortly after that. So yeah, that record Below the Heavens means a whole lot as far as just showing the scope of possibility, like what people could do when they come together, especially in LA. Knowing that those guys are from out here, that's another big part of it.
Right, and what that album, it felt like what that album sort of helped kick off, and even more so the New York album, which would come out several years later. The artists that he would round up to work with, specifically from the LA Underground at the time, and he's continued to put on for like the LA Underground throughout, his career and his discography and everything like that. So,
in general, he puts on for LA in general.
Yeah, there's a lot more to discover in the Blu discography. I keep encouraging people to like go deeper than
for sure.
Below the Heavens, and even the record, the Miles record he did with Exile not too long ago was fantastic. I thought Give Me My Flowers was as good, if not better, than Below the Heavens.
Nope. Yes, they're blessed enough to do exactly what they need to do as far as somehow keep on talking about their life and their experience and their love for this music and this movement, and make sure it's authentic enough to be able to be listened to and felt and paid attention to over and over again. They've done that for a super long time. I don't know. They've probably been in it 20 years probably at this point. Cause I know they were working together like early aughts. Like I know they're working together then. So, yeah, man. Shout out Blu and Exile. But yeah, the record just means, like I said, it means possibility. It means you could transmute so much, and you could change lives for the better, including your own.
Hey, if it wasn't for that very concept, I don't think we would have this show. So. Right. It just goes to show you, two artists who, we spent years working together in a musical capacity before we even decided to, take this endeavor on. And, it's that, honestly, like that chemistry from all the years of working together that, it allows us to get on the mic and not suck, essentially. So,
well, I hope we don't at least, ultimately what Moulz is saying is...
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
That's right.
Look at us. We're all here, and you're right, Versus. This is a beautiful thing, because regardless of how me or anyone else feels about it, here's an album that came out, 15 years ago that was so moving that we're still discussing it here today. Not every piece of art gets that kind of legacy or longevity.
Nope.
Like there are countless works released every day, every week, and not all of them get talked about 15 years later.
Right. So, it's a drop in the bucket most of the time, and then especially when you start going through the years, 15 years is a long time when you're talking about new listeners coming around discovering something.
All right.
And I'm telling you, Below the Heavens is one of those albums where I continue to see young listeners put the album in those little graphics of their favorite albums. Like I continue to see the album cover proliferated in various forms. So, the album has definitely, whether you like it or not, has stood the test of time, and it definitely has, its inclusion in the canon is sort of a modern classic. You can say at this point in time, they say a classic is something that can't really be determined until enough time has passed. And yet here we are 15 years later, we're talking about it. They're still able to go out and perform this album, not just get booked for show dates and do their whole catalog. Sometimes they're being booked to just play this album. And that's also a testament to the album and, sort of the legend of it, because we're discussing the leak briefly. I felt like this thing was passed around everywhere. I was seeing it in places like, we were talking about this on OK Player at the time, but that's kind of where you would assume conversations about this album were occurring. They were also occurring on like the all hip hop message boards, on Boxed In, on S8E06 message boards, like, you know, a lot less sort of backpacker focused audience on these boards were eating this album up. Dub CNN, which, you know, their focus is West Coast hip hop. They covered this record, and, you know, their focus is more so in the gangster rap sort of, you know, lane of West Coast rap. And this was an album that they were promoting at the time too. So, you know, it was, not only was the leak passed around, but the legend was sort of developing in real time very quickly.
Yeah,
I mean, this was, as someone who, I didn't even get around to hearing this album until 2016. And that wasn't for lack of exposure, you know, because like Moulz was just saying, you know, people make those grids of like, you know, their favorite albums or era defining albums. I would always see Blu's smiling face, you know, staring back at me. So it's like, I knew it was one of those albums that one thing you couldn't argue about was its impact. You know, we probably wouldn't be doing this today if it didn't have an impact. So, you know,
and I wanted to clarify,
you know,
I was thinking about when it was, when I heard it, and I said 17, 18, or I'm sorry, 16, 17. I definitely didn't know like this album was coming out. Like I found out, like it was almost like, you haven't heard that? Go hear that type of thing. Like it was like maybe like a year after, like probably 08 or something that I heard it. Cause I wasn't like, there was nobody like, hey, you gotta check this out. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Or, yeah, I mean, this seems like one of those sort of word of mouth.
It was a huge word of mouth album.
Yeah. Like, it was definitely getting, we probably discussed this already in the review, but like, I remember being on Two Dope Boys and seeing Blu get posted and seeing this cover. And then on other blogs and other message boards and forums and comment sections, you know, I would hear about this album. And it's like, okay, so this guy is a guy that's doing something. That's obvious, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the way the record ended up coming out helped the story of it, because it was like, how I heard it, it kind of was like a tap you on the shoulder type of thing. I feel like, because how it has people talking in it, like people couldn't really find the one. They found a version, you know what I mean? And maybe they didn't even know that there was another version. Like the one you were talking about with the Fela Kuti thing, I'm not sure if I've heard that or not. Like I may have.
I didn't hear it until this week. I just heard, you know, my version had, I still have this version because, quite frankly, I'm sort of attached to the version I've been listening to for 15 years at this point. And other than,
which was the advanced copy, basically.
Yes, but other than the fact that like I didn't have to review that one this week, I don't feel compelled. Nothing was added other than those little interludes. So like I don't necessarily feel compelled to even replace it. I'm going in the folder now. There's a record called Life's a Gamble, which
I remember that. The samples.
Shrek Life.
Yep. Something like that. Yeah. Yep. I remember that.
That record is on here, and Party of Two is the other one that's on here.
Damn, that's on the album?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It was track 9 originally on the album. See, the sequencing is kind of crazy. Like, the one that I have opens with My World Is and ends with The World Is.
Right.
And that, for years, is how I've known this album. And I feel like because of obviously the track titles and their content, I think that they bookended the album very well. I Am, which is now the outro of the version that we're doing here on the show, which is the retail version, is only track 7 on my version. And really they needed to put those interludes in there because a lot of times they're like made to sort of set up the next track. Like, I know the record that comes before Dancing in the Rain, there's like a direct sort of like audio clip related to like Dancing in the Rain. And it's I think to bridge the new sequencing, but I'm just so attached to the sequencing that I'm familiar with that, you know, I was myself kind of taken aback this week at all the changes that took place. In an attempt, I think, to, you know, get ahead of the bootlegging it's like, all right, well, the retail's different. You don't really have the album until you have the retail. Mm-hmm. I do feel like some of the sequencing changes were like almost reactionary as opposed to like, no, just leave it. It's fine. Like, just put it out. People like it. They want to buy it. And this was a record that it was impossible to find this album for a little while because they only pressed up, as we heard in the audio clip earlier, 3,500 copies, which it sounds like a lot, but like when something catches on like this did and they're able to tour it and, you know, sell CDs on tour as well, in addition to doing mail order, about a year and a half in, you could not find this album until I think they did like a re-release a few years later.
Yeah. I think they did 2 re-releases, one like a few years later and then another one after that sometime later, you know. So I mean, I probably talked about it in part 1, but folks, look it up for yourself. Like, there are so many different versions of this thing that like with different track titles, different sequencing. Like,
I was so tight when Mel called me this week and he told me, yeah, I give this album a redacted out of 15. And I was like, 15? You're missing a track, bro. And he was like,
yeah. No,
I'm not. Like, I checked everywhere. And he was right.
Like, I cross-referenced as best I could. It's like,
I was listening to version? I was listening to the advance, and
yeah,
not only that, the sequencing is completely different. And I was like, shit, okay, I have to go in and listen to this whole album like it's a new album, essentially.
Right. So, you know, but seems like no matter the version of this thing that people have, they like it.
I think it's resonated.
Yeah.
But, you know, versus we did discuss, you've worked with both Blu and Exile, Blu multiple times. We have some records here for our audience to get a little bit of a taste for what you do.
Let's see here. Which one should we start with here?
Okay. Let's start with the record that Exile produced. It's a little bit older. It's from that Incandescent album.
Okay.
And this is Life Story, parentheses, Story of My Life, by Versus. Let's hear a little bit of this. And then Versus sent over a record that he did with Blu, and we could play that right afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you say a little bit. I say we should play the whole thing.
Hey, if it's okay with Versus, we'll run the whole
some
thing.
promo, you know?
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right. Well, here we go. Here's Life Story, parentheses, Story of My Life.
Life story, love and glory. If you listen when it plays it, plays it, plays it. Life's story, love and glory, glory. If you listen when it plays it, plays it. Life's story, love, life's story. If you listen when it plays it, plays it. Life's
without a doubt, we all got one. No fairy tales, real life could be cumbersome if we choose to run. That's why I'm unloaded. Microphone detonated over the beats, I'm exploding. Yo, give a drummer some. Though I've been marching to the beat of my own from circa 91. Was dealt some crazy cards. Papa was a rolling stone, then a shooting star. Kinda sound like a meteorite. Shook up my whole globe, inspired me to go right and shed a little light on some things that in hindsight might kill me softly or make me strong in its own right. I call it paradise, you call it. Yo, I'm trying to get that. So if you just, you might get understand. You might just understand this is mine.
story, love, life's story. If you listen when it plays it, plays it.
Story of my life, 3 things for certain: death, uncertainty, contradiction, certainly. Story of my life, where she could have been my wife, wouldn't even think twice. Fickleness her only vice. Oh, how I wish I was an octopus with a firm grasp. When in the way your arm, I detach my arms fast and escape, get away, but I can't, cause I'm weak, and I'm meek, and I'm vexed, cause I can't move on to the next, yeah.
life's story.
I'm trying to get there. So if you just, you might get understand. You might just understand this is my story of my life. Dysfunctional relationships, keyword dysfunctional. Life is what you make of it. Story of my life. I try to be the bigger man. Motion for a truce and get left with a hanging hand. Your life's a trip with a one-way ticket, full of pain and pleasure. Nonsense, daily empathy for Helen Keller. And yet life's a treasure. Take the dirt up off your chest, push off the rest. Ain't nothing better. You better.
Hey,
There it is.
I got something to say about that. Okay, one, I enjoyed that, and two, versus.
You my favorite new dude.
You my favorite new dude.
Respect.
That's a
love
seal
that.
of approval on this show.
Respect.
So that was actually the record that Jesse sent to me to kind of put me on to what you do and, you know, to pitch you as a potential guest for this episode. And I gotta say, I'm not blowing smoke. I really like that record too.
It was good, right? It was good.
Sorry.
I appreciate y'all for sure.
Flip was good. Bars was good. I have no complaints.
Go get that Incandescent album. If
Thank
you're
you.
hearing this right now and you love Moulz Mel and you love Verses, spread that love.
Look, don't worry, Versus. We definitely not gassing you because long-time listeners of the show know how we get down.
I
Okay,
appreciate
so
it.
if we didn't like it, you know, we wouldn't have like aired you out live on air, but we wouldn't have been acting like this.
Got
So,
you. I
yeah.
really appreciate it. Shout out Exile. I wanted to talk about that record and maybe if I can tie in
please.
to talk about.
Yeah, I
how-
wanted to ask you, like, you know, working with Exile, what that process was like and how that was for you.
So coming back from hearing Below the Heavens, me being like, okay, this record, yes, this is probably the first record I could say that I heard as a youth, and I was aware that something was happening more than, because I've been listening to CDs since I was like a single digit kid, right? And just like 3, 4, 5, just putting CDs in the system and like just having fun, just seeing the machine work and hearing stuff come out the speakers. And all this to say, when I heard Below the Heavens and like really was able to experience it, I feel like it had a certain effect on like people will say like, you know, I heard this album, heard that. That was like how Blue says, it's dark and hell is hot. I don't say that that's the album that made me want to rap, but I definitely heard that in 1998 as well too, and it had an effect too. I was honestly just a little scared and also reverent of DMX and Rough Riders. But all this to say, after Below the Heavens, it was one of those records for sure that like did something to me that made me feel like a certain type of confidence in just life in general. Come like as a kid coming from LA, and I was living in Pasadena at the time, my brothers, and you know, Incandescent, which is the record Life Story's on. Obviously, Life Story, I wouldn't know who Exile was without Blu Exile and MySpace. That's how I feel like I first heard them both. Which is crazy because it's like we're still pretty much in that same era. It's just really there's a lot more people alive and stuff now, but it's pretty much, to me, it's a lot of the same things happening. But anyway, the record really influenced Incandescent. Even like if you look at the Life Story video, I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm wearing a fedora similar to one Blue would wear. And I remember looking at that after the video came out, and I was like, oh, that was me really like on some like trying to try on my an older brother's clothes type of thing. And I knew that wasn't me, but I put it in the video because I wouldn't be on that song. Like, you know what I mean? It was my way of like paying homage and also like being honest of where I was at as a teenager at that time. Like even that house is the house I wrote the record in. All the videos from Incandescent. And to even take it further, the Soul Amazin video was directed by Jerome D, who I found out about through Blue, through that Soul Amazin video. And I remember contacting him, and he did all the videos for Incandescent except for one, Traveling. And the other video was done by a guy named David Hellman, who I also found out about through Blue. So all this to say, Below the Heavens is heavily ultra influential to me in my life and as a creator, for sure. And it was funny at one point, shortly after it came out, people were like, "Oh, you sound like him, you blah 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 blah," and I felt so awesome one night when he called me. I was living in Pasadena still, and we were living on Marengo near the Gelson's grocery store, and I was by the bank, sitting on the stairs across the street from there. And he calls me, and he's like, "Yo, how old are you?" He's like, "You 19?" And he told me the record was classic, and I didn't believe it. I was like, I was like, I'm gonna go tell my roommate about this when I get in the house, but I'm also gonna have severe imposter syndrome for a good 6 years after this, because I wasn't expecting to come out of high school to have someone I was listening to be like, "Hey, you're doing good." You know what I mean? I was not expecting that at all, because I seen him perform and all types of stuff before, and I just, was feeling like, damn, I got so much to do, and I still always feel like that as far as just knowing there's work to do. But Below the Heavens, super, super duper influential. And like I said, the videos for Incandescent, I wouldn't have, man, it goes far, dude. I think there's even people who saw the videos from Incandescent. I made sure to do a thing where if there's someone I cared about was near me and they needed visuals, and I think they were respectful enough to try to work something out with the director, even though there may or may not be a crazy budget or something like that, I would make sure they connected. And a few other people work with these directors as well. And I'm saying, to me, that's because of Below the Heavens. And I don't know. It's like we've been saying, it's one of those records for sure. I was trying to think if there's something else. I think that might have been it. I wanted to talk about the video and the song. Oh, and how the song came about. I'm pretty sure I seen Exile around for years. I rapped on a beat of his from the radio record during the MySpace era, in 2009. So I was actively working to get him on a record already after I heard Below the Heavens fresh out of high school.
I'll tell you what, some of those radio beats were really hard to rap to as someone who would freestyle to a lot of instrumental albums and whatnot. That was a challenging one.
No, for sure. There was, I forgot which one it was. Oh, The Sound Is God. That was the one with the Alan Watts thing. Mm-hmm. That joint was the one. It's on YouTube still, actually. It's called... Damn, I forgot the name of it right now. But it's Versus TV on YouTube. But anyway, I want to talk about how the record came about. From what I remember, it's I would see him around all the time. And he was becoming more familiar with me, and was, he would talk to me when he would see me out, and I would always be at Fat Beats or Boombox or something at Grand Star or Second Street Jazz. You know what I mean? All these little showcases during that era. And we messaged online at one point, and he was like, "All right, it'll be, I'll work with you for, this will be the budget that you got to come up with." And I remember I figured that part out. And I also, this sort of was, this is what the catalyst of it was, honestly. He posted on Twitter. He said, "I need a mixer, this mixer." We had that in our garage for some reason. I don't really know whose it was. That's probably the closest thing I've done to straight just jacking something from someone's house, which is my brother's garage. But I think I probably mentioned to him "Yo, I'm gonna give this mixer to somebody because I really need to do this." And I think it was fine, but I just know I was ready to move. Period. I just know that feeling I had.
It sounds like destiny to me.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, what are the odds that this exact mixer would be just sitting in your garage somewhere? Right.
And so I messaged him from Twitter, and I was like, "Yo," and at the time I was working at CVS in Tahunga.
Oh my God! Let me tell you, I used to work at CVS. Fuck that place. Okay.
Man, God bless everyone that's ever is an alumni at.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone who's an alumni, yes, but as an institution, Wicked. I don't ever want to talk about that. That's traumatic. That's traumatic. Truck day is traumatic. Hearing those words will send.
You feel free to edit that. Feel free to backmask and all that stuff if you got to.
I mean, you're good. You're good.
With the and then so one day after I messaged him back about that mixer, he came to Tahunga to pick me up, to pick up the mixer first, and then he said, "I'll pick you up later so we could figure out what the music was gonna sound like." So him and his homie came to, and they picked up the mixer for me, and I gave him the money, and he came back, picked me up that night. I was probably I think I was like 18 at that point, and we went to his spot, and he played. The first beat he played was Life Story, and he had used the mixer that day. He was just trying it out, and then he starts playing stuff from iTunes, and I immediately was like, yeah, just to let you know already, I really feel like whatever you just played, that felt like God was in here. So I didn't say those words, but it just was like, I kind of don't want to see you scroll through your iTunes with all due respect, sir. And so, and then he kind of realized. I think he realized. He was kind of like, damn, why'd I show him this one? But also, I showed him this one. So, I remember that moment a little bit. It was like, unless I'm projecting, but I kind of felt like I remember that moment, and I'm just glad I got the record because it's obviously something that's near and dear. And shout out Exile.
Wow. Classic story, honestly. From how
honestly,
you got the song together to the. It was like a movie. Yeah, honestly, I mean,
yeah, and then I recorded it, and I recorded it at so my older brother has a friend Jordan. I don't know if they're still cool or talking right now, but he was in a group called 7 Day. It goes by Listed, and he was recording the entire El Condescent and the project before that, Synergy. And so I remember bringing it to his house and recording it in, I want to say, a garage maybe. And yeah, just a house studio setup type of thing. And that one, and I remember showing it to Exile, and he sounded like he was cool with it, and it was as long as he didn't hate it, I was fine. I was like, let's go. And yeah,
I think it sounds great. We have another record. This is one of your records with Blu. It's, I believe, the most recent one. Rhythm, RITHM, featuring Blu. Mel, you got that?
Oh, of course. You want me to hit it?
Let's get into it. Let's hear it.
It's not a pulpit, ceremonial, hold a matrimony, nah. Shut your mouth, know your role, get your bony pie. Enemy, necessary progress, be priority, number one, ain't no enemy. Minus the enemy, wonder why I spell it with an I, not an E. Shot up a box and never catch a fade. Shade, hell of a toxic world star, better look away. Pixelated till the signal ain't janky. Mood and maintain is tentative, what you thinking? Matters more than matter, I be on propelling. Well, it mind you chatter, negatives the fella. Only if you let them in the bigger pages let you all. Stars in the dark do flicker.
Plus you gotta have math, cause even being strapped won't save you from the rap these days. MCs and DJs better hide. Gil Scott told me that it won't be televised. We wreck it live with no real to real. Cause real recognize real even in desperate times. I'm blessed to rhyme, even pay bills with the skills I've acquired. Every time that I build, still a fan first. I listen for a vision as a man first. Then I write my raps till my hands hurt. I put my hands in the earth to heal. Pull out dirt for a man from a grain of sand. God is real. Find a performing live in Israel. If you wanna get healed, just nail, just ask. We got angels and disciples all performing a task. Rolling past with my tape on blast.
go,
rhythm.
y'all. Rhythm. I feel like
Cool beat. Real like folky, sort of like the I like that beat.
Yeah, shout out Zero.
Oh, Zero did that. Okay.
Yeah.
That was interesting because I felt like listening to you on this record. And when did this one come out? 2019?
Oh, that's 2020.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah, that's 2020.
Okay. So
I released it on my birthday, 2020.
Is it 9 or 10 years older than the first record we played?
Which one? That's like a whole 10. That's pretty much like a 9 or 10 year. Yeah.
I can hear how you've come into your own voice, essentially. You were mentioning on the first record how you were definitely taking a lot of cues from Blu, and I like Blu, so I was fine with it. But on this one, I feel like you're really coming through, and Blu's coming through, and there's a distinct difference between you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So dope record.
There's for sure always has been, for sure. It's like even on the Incandescent record, there's like, I'm referencing Domino, I'm referencing Tone Loc, I'm referencing I, Black Moon, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just
Mel loves Domino.
Yeah, I was like, shout out to Domino. I found out through this show that I'm a Domino fan.
Okay, word.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Yeah. But all that to say is like, there's so many other things that's always been in there that,
right.
They're taking there. Even with, the newer stuff, it doesn't sound anything like the other previous releases, just because I'm like, people, I feel like I need to appreciate and also let people appreciate that, I came up listening to all types of stuff. Rap, hip-hop is for sure the one that made me feel like, music is possible to do. And so now it's like, for me, it's about, going back and showing, like, the lineage. Like, one of the first CDs I ever had in my hand and was interested in, and it wasn't like I went and bought it. I was at the Long Beach Queen Mary, like some event at the Queen Mary's, a reggae fest with my mom. Someone hands me a Long Beach Dub All-Stars record. And so if you listen to the newer stuff and even go back 2015, you'll hear, there's the, any dub reggae roots influence, creeping in, just because it's like, this has been around, and hearing, Bob Marley in the house and stuff like that. And so as far as coming into my own, it's definitely appreciated that you, just opening and hearing the music now, as opposed to whatever, focusing on just the one part you're familiar and like type of thing.
Or, I just want to say, as you were telling the story earlier about how, the previous record came to be, I actually got goosebumps as you were telling it, because it was like eerie, like uncannily similar to an experience I had like 17, 18 years old. Because here's the thing, and I'm going to do this without saying names, Moulz knows why, but almost like beat for beat, exact same experience I had with the guy who was highly influential to me. He's actually a classmate of Blu's on the XXL freshman list.
That's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, I was around that age, and I released a record, and it got the attention of this guy, and he told me like, yo, like, you're dope, you're a legend. I was like, no, like, no, this is too soon for that. Like, I'm not ready for that. No, I don't believe. Like, my mind was blown, but it was like, yo, that's crazy that you would think that. And people said the same thing to me, like, yo, you're definitely influenced by this guy. You sound like that. Even down to you saying, like, in the video, you rocked the fedora. I was dressing just like this dude. Okay, and what that meant at the time was like the button down T-shirt with the shirt on top, like a T-shirt on top. And so like I as you were telling that story, I literally had goosebumps, because I'm like, yo, this happened to me. Like in 2010, I dropped a record over one of this guy's beats, and I think that's really a testament to that era, sort of the blog era, where I feel like we had a specific experience that the generations before us, and maybe even after it isn't quite like it was in that blog era, where I feel like we had access to those guys that we idolize, maybe more than any other era in hip hop history. Like this idea that we could drop a song and get the attention of the people that like we look up to.
Not everyone was on it yet. There was still like, you know, yet to see this huge, like, I don't know what year it was, maybe 2013, maybe 2014.
I feel like the shift happened around 2013, 2014, where it kind of went back to the old industry where...
Yeah, but the floodgates just opened in terms of artists, like, putting out music online to the point where, like, almost everyone I know was putting out music online.
Right.
And, you know, in the early to mid 2000s, you know, I would read Nah Right, and SK would write something negative about 50 Cent, and I would email him, and I'm like, I don't like your tone here, sir. And he would be like, well, let's talk it out then. What's the issue? Like, this is probably...
The point is he'd respond to you.
Yes.
You know? Like, people were, you know, they felt approachable. You were able to get in contact with them, you know?
For a time. And then, like...
For a time.
In 2013, a lot of shit changed.
Yeah. They're not as... It kind of reverted back to where they're not as reachable anymore, you know? Like, but that special period, like 2000 or like 2013... someone could pop up on a blog, you find a contact email, or you find like if they happen to have a blog of their own, or you can reach out and you might just hear back and you might just end up working with them. Like,
there's only so many people were actually doing that. I mean, there was still to some degree a barrier of entry, and this behavior wasn't exactly normalized at the time, you know?
Right.
Like, for instance, Zero, I met Zero through MySpace. A guy named 00 Genesis was like, hey, Zero, you should hit up this guy. And he hit me up. And I think I was just about to release Synergy. And he came to Zero came to the release party. And it happened to be at one of his childhood friends' family's art gallery in, what is that area? Atwater. And my tech teacher, who also introduced me to like the live performance space as far as like being an artist, like within like an artist name type of thing. He set that whole show up, and just to speak to that era, like that's super real. And maybe a few years back, Zero sent me a message of he showed me when he reached out, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's work. Yeah, I'm busy right now, but yeah, let's work. And I was like, damn, like I was so already like focus on me type of thing, and like had like so weird social walls up then. And it was just funny just to look at that. But all this to say, yeah, just a testament to what you guys are talking about. That whole era is like you can end up working with people who you may not have if it weren't for the way you can connect via the internet. And like the rhythm song, that song wouldn't exist if it weren't for that era.
Word. You know, honestly, this is a cliche, but I think the big takeaway and benefit to the blog era, you know, people like to use this format, but I think it's true. Maybe the real blog era was the friends we made along the way. Okay, just maybe. You know, the music was cool. Yeah, but the connections that were made.
No, I agree for sure. The music is just like even. Yeah, the connections that are made were what's important. Like Blue, like we're not like talking every day or nothing like that, but it's mutual love and respect. And I would, run into him so many times in the last year or so, just randomly type of thing. And it's just cool and crazy. And one fun fact, he's the first person ever to be like, yo, here's some money, you rap. Like, you know what I'm saying? I've never had that happen before.
Word.
And that was not asked for. He said, hey, can you do this song with me? I'm like, what? Of course I'm going to do this song with you. And he's like, here you go. And I'm like, damn, I actually really needed this. What is going on? So yeah, man, shout out Blue, shout out Exile, for real. Shout out music, shout out hip hop, shout out y'all.
Absolutely.
Shout out Jesse.
But no, you snap it right now.
Shout out Jesse for making the connection here. I'd love to have you on again just for some other West Coast stuff that you're just a fan of, like, nothing you may have like formal association with, but you were mentioning like Domino and whatnot. I mean,
okay, word.
That would be cool.
So that reference was on what was that? Oh, this on Incandescent on in your dreams on a second verse. I'm just saying that to say, like, just to speak on, like, we're talking about the influence of like Below the Heavens, and just me wanting to point out, like, there's so many other little things that are there. But yeah. And shout out Blue, man. One day, real quick, one day I asked him, I was like, yo, do you feel like I've ever sounded like you? And he was like, nah. And I was like, cool, I will never worry about this again. Because at one point it was like, damn, like, is there? I was like, is the reference the same thing as that? But yeah, shout out Blue. Shout out.
You know what it is sometimes though? Like, there's regional similarities between artists, you know, with like you guys both being from California. And for instance, myself being from New York, I'm sure people could say, "Oh yeah, the Locks, like they're New York rappers. They all kind of have the same style, essentially, but they're unique in their own right. Different rap voices, different deployment of punchlines, and you start to get into the intricacies of it.
She got that urgency.
Yeah,
Styles got that. Wait, are you talking to me right now? And then Jadakiss is like, doing whatever the hell he's doing. He's making you like worried about like you should be watching him or what? I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to speak to what you're saying, I feel you. You're talking about the nuances of like people's style.
It's just sort of regional things. Like I think coming from New York, when I hear, for instance, a lot of music from Atlanta, it might sound similar at first because it's like there's a certain flow that's being utilized. There's a certain style of beat and tempo that these beats are typically locked into. But when you get down to it, it's like, okay, each person's kind of doing their own thing. You just have to give it that extra, especially if you're not from there. I feel like you got to give it that extra time to marinate, where it's like, okay, I see where like the similarities lie, but there's also intricate differences. Where like a 2 Chainz record, for example, like he can be really funny on purpose.
Right.
Whereas Future can be more serious, dark, brooding, but like he has a sense
also
of humor
funny
in
on
his
purpose.
own way. Yeah.
That la-di-da-di-da is very funny.
Yes, he can.
You gotta
sometimes,
think,
that was intentional.
You gotta think that was intentional.
Young Thug with his stylistic sort of like switching back and forth between rapping, singing, yelping, triple time, double time, slowing his flow down, stuff like that. When you get into all of the sort of differences, it's like, okay, there's unifying ideas that exist within. I think that's a good thing because it's like, it's good for a rap scene or a region to have an identity. And then, you get into the sort of stylistic differences that are underneath the unifying things, So there's a lot to this rap thing, I must say.
Yes, sir.
But we wanted to give you the floor. If you wanted to plug anything, social media, upcoming projects, however you'd like to use your time, the floor is yours.
You could check out the tunes at versus.bandcamp.com. The social right now, only thing I have is Instagram at the moment. This is Versus, THISISVERSIS. Check out Via del Sol. Recent release from last August on hip hop's birthday, or the so-called hip hop's birthday. The one that's recognized, at least August 11th. That's when that came out. And then also we have Forward from the group Takaya, which is Swarby and I. And we write the records together, record them together. For the most part, we do the artwork together too. Check those joints out.
Well, folks, you got it right from the source. Versus, thank you for joining us. You're welcome to come back anytime. And Mel, maybe you're fucking tripping on this one. This is a good record.
Maybe. I mean, if I am, there'll be a time where I'll pull up the music and
Have you watched the video?
And, I haven't. Seen
Oh, you gotta watch the video. But it's I don't know. Maybe that won't change anything. But for me, watching the video was like, oh yeah, I know it. This is familiar. The freeway over there. Okay, like it. I don't know. Maybe the video might help.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe not.
We'll see.
It's cool if it doesn't.
I appreciate.
Look, I'm still
the
trying to
understanding.
convince Mel that Cal 2000 Judgment Day is a classic, and it's working. It is working. It's a slow crawl to classic status.
It seems like versus at the end of every season, I come back to start the next season. Like, another song on that Cal 2000 went up. Like, and it just keeps climbing in the amount of songs that I like from the album. But
it's growing.
Yeah. Anyway, it's
Yeah,
been a pleasure.
So. Yeah, likewise.
And thank you for being generous with your time. I'm sure you have a lot going on. So
many things. You already know how it is. So I know y'all too.
Appreciate it very much. And yeah, everyone check out Versus, check out his music, hit the Bandcamp, support. And Jesse, once again, thank you for making the connection here. Shout out to Jesse, the third member. You know what time it is. It's rap time.
Peace. Shout out Rap Rankings.
Yo, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all the other episodes, stop by raprankings.com or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform.